welcome. Thanks for joining this morning. Today is the goal setting workshop for CSE supervisors. You have been, you attended the kickoff, I hope, with regards to the new PAT system, the new PAT process. We kind of did a kickoff number 2 after that. To just go through some more aspects of the system. And now it's the goal setting workshop where we want to talk about the foundation of a good performance review, a good relationship between you and your employees, and kind of get into how do we set goals? You know, what are goals? Why does it matter? Why is it important? And today I'm actually going to be the co-facilitator again with Christina McGuire, who is a member of the Leadership and Talent Development team. Welcome, Christina, and thank you. And we want you to, feel free to ask questions in the chat. There'll be time at the end as well, but, this is really, nothing brand new, hopefully for any of you, but it's a refresher. It's a new way of kind of looking at goals or thinking about goals, just a different approach. But we want you to just kind of take it all in and take out of it what you will. So next slide, please. The goal guidance that we're giving you is we already know that we're here for teaching, that we're here for outreach, that we're here for research. And what we want to go deeper is for you to incorporate your departmental values into your goals. Look at what's important to your department, match that with what's important to you, and make sure that that's a part of what you're doing every day, and then also what you want to do with your goals. Your goals should include project-based goals, which can broaden your work span, and it can convey what it is that you want to, highlight is the word that I'm looking for. Also, you want to make it broader than focusing on your professional development. While professional development is important, you're more than that. And so it's really holistic. It's about, what you want to, again, highlight, bring forward. And this is what's so important about the check-ins. It's an ongoing conversation. It is something that you don't want to just write down a goal and then put it away and bring it out at the end of the year and look and go, oh, forgot all about that. Your goals should be engaging. They should be something that you want to participate in, because then you'll want to have frequent check-ins about your goals. This year, of all years, we all know that we didn't get a chance to probably accomplish what we wanted to, but I want you to kind of think about, there are things that you accomplished. There are things that you should be proud of, and there are things that you should be able to talk about that you made an impact. And that is what we want to be able to do even going forward. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Christina and we'll get into it.
Awesome. Thank you. And just to kind of emphasize, I really like the points that Joy just mentioned with some of that specific CSE goal guidance, and that it's really thinking about these concepts and how they apply to your work, and knowing the mission of the university and of the college. How do you take that to the next level of those departmental goals or even the team goals, and then kind of how to weave in the individual perspective too, which what is motivating, for that individual. So keeping all of those things in mind as we go through this information, hopefully you find it helpful and more relevant as we move forward. So again, welcome, really excited to be back. I was with you for the kickoff session, so hopefully you attended that one. If not, I know there's wonderful resources out there to refer back to. So excited to continue the conversation with this simplified performance management process. And again, it's an evidence-based best practices approach around the behaviors that drive effective performance management. And those three foundational aspects are there on the slide. The first one there is that goals. So at the beginning of the year, it's setting broad and challenging goals, having the quality conversations throughout the year. So that regular touch point with supervisors, between supervisors and employees to speak about progress on goals, get feedback around goals. And then at the end is that formal evaluation or that formal review, which is really just one touch point in the grand scheme of the simplified performance management approach, but maybe a little bit more formal. So with that said, today we're going to focus on the goal piece and strategies to set effective goals, and to give you some time to discuss the application and to get tips from each other and from your other colleagues joining this session today. And again, just to emphasize what Joy had said, a reminder, if you do have questions throughout this information, feel free to throw them in chat. We'll be monitoring that, or feel free to unmute and share too to have a discussion that way. Either way works for us. So a little note about the timing before moving forward. Typically, goals are best set at the beginning of the performance management cycle. So you have the entire cycle to think about, discuss, implement, and achieve those goals. But the reality is we're about halfway through the performance management cycle for CSE at this point. So we're not quite at that beginning. So as we move into this goals, you may have set goals already. So this would be an opportunity to really revise, refresh, and maybe incorporate some new strategies or tips that you hear about today. Maybe your year has just been too crazy busy. It has been quite a unique year. And maybe it's just starting at this point and discussing and figuring out what goals or what work needs to be accomplished between now and the end of the year. This work is cyclical in nature. You know, you go through one performance management cycle by design, that you move right into the next one. So regardless of where you're at, whether you've started or haven't yet, you can pick them up at any time and move forward from that point. So hopefully you challenge yourself to think through, how is this going to work for you? Or what is the best ways to apply this information for you and your team, and what is truly realistic and practical given where you're at now. So at the start of the simplified approach, as I mentioned, is effective goal setting. And again, it might look like going back and revising what you do have. Maybe at the beginning of the year, you had some really good intentions and really good goals, and then a lot of craziness happened, the pandemic, there was the racial stuff, the political stuff. It has been quite a year, and it's all impacted everybody differently. So maybe those goals that you laid out at the beginning of the year may have gotten paused, may need drastic updates, and may need to be refreshed. So it might be going back and looking at those goals, or maybe it was just so busy you didn't have time to pause and really think about the work that needed to be done. So maybe this is a time to find some time to look at what those goals might be, so you can be focused and understand the contributions that you yourself have as a supervisor, your team, and then to help guide employees through this process as well. So when it comes to goals, we always like to start about what is the purpose of a goal. So in your own words, and feel free to unmute and share, throw it in chat, how would you describe the purpose of a goal? So we say it's important, kind of why, how is it useful? How have you used it? So when you think about goals, what is the purpose of a goal to you? Thank you. See some stuff coming in. The chat there, so having a focus for action to keep you engaged as well. And I did see a note, thank you so much for saying that the racial stuff. I do apologize if that came across as something just very temporary, just kind of to not to brush that aside. But yes, there is a big, what I meant to say was that there was a lot of racial conversations happening and a lot of things occurring locally and nationally about that. So that was something that, in addition to everything else that we were struggling with as a community or as individuals to go through, that was another component that may have impacted you, impacted your employees. And again, it all impacted us in different ways as well. So something to be mindful of. So thank you for correcting me on that. And I did want to address that. I really appreciate that. To definitely put some time and attention toward that as well. So thank you for that comment. as well. It looked like it only came to me, but it was important to make that correction. And I didn't mean to blow it off or belittle that, because that is something very important to keep in mind. So goals, purpose of goals, focus of action, keep people engaged, broaden your focus, ways to organize around important and complex things to complete things in an important time. So again, it's some focus action, there's some timeline around it. It's to keep people moving in a direction that has a meaningful impact. So thank you for all of that input. Essentially, what you said is the purpose of a goal. We simplified and say it's really getting the right work done, which was reflected in the comment chats that came in. The goals, in order for them to be purposeful, they need to be big goals. And in order to do that, it's following these strategies here on the slide. The first one there is to keep things simple. So when it comes to setting and thinking about the work that you need to do, it's being specific, important, and measurable when it comes to describing what needs to be done and making sure that at whatever level that employee is, that the work that they are doing is important. The measurable piece, that can take a variety of different forms. It could be a qualitative measurement, it could be a quantitative measurement, and measurement to one department or one team might look different than others as well. Another strategy is to make sure that the goal describes the what and then also the how. So it is clear what the outcome needs to be and what the employee needs to do in order to achieve it. It needs to be aligned with the team unit goals and strategies. So whatever level that makes sense. And sometimes they cascade down, sometimes they link up, but in whatever they end up as, they're aligned. So everybody's contributing to bigger things. And then limited in number so that they are focused, so that there are only a few goals at any given time that people can really focus on and work toward in order to make that meaningful impact. And that is where they become bigger goals as well. They may be, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in some of the future slides, but they might have some subtasks under them. So little pieces or little milestones to help them progress along the way, but the goals themselves should be big. The other piece of it is the flexibility. So again, the current reality is that virtual work, it may be temporary, who knows, maybe temporary for longer than we expected, or it may end sooner than we expected. So there is a lot of different things changing and changing rapidly. I know some additional changes go in effect tonight for Minnesotans. So a lot of different things are changing. So it's being flexible to the goals. So making sure that as things do change, that the goals maybe have a short, midterm, long-term. The flexibility may come in the form of a pause, like maybe it's just unrealistic to have somebody try to achieve or work on a particular goal. So maybe it's paused for next year, or paused until more resources or the capabilities, the capacity frees up some as well. So think about that piece as well. Flexing throughout the year and course correcting along the way is going to help support employees to be a lot more successful in achieving their goals. So goals versus tasks, they are very easily and often confused. So just to distinguish between the two, the job tasks, what we mean when we talk about job tasks, they're typically those bullet points on a job description, that they are that daily operational work that needs to get done, that keeps the team, department, unit at whatever level working and moving forward, serving your students or other colleagues around the college or around the university. They are typically frequently and repetitively done, so they might come across as like a checklist style type of work. So maybe it's a monthly checklist, a weekly checklist. To contrast that with goals, goals relate to work that takes a little bit longer to accomplish. It might have a bigger impact and more meaningful impact when done. They require more time and effort. Goals typically aren't completed in a day, maybe not even in a week. And usually when they are completed, they're not necessarily repeated, or if they are repeated, they aren't repeated for a while. So it might be something you have a goal that every 3 years something happens, every 5 years something happens. So both the goals and tasks are important. It's all work that needs to get done in order to keep things moving, in order to, move the mission forward. But it's important to distinguish so that you are effective in setting work and goals around the work that, fits those strategies that we just went over, and that it's not just tasks to do. So the tasks don't end up as the goal. As I mentioned before, the tasks can be part of goals. So maybe you have a big goal with some subtasks that progress it forward, that help move it forward. But the goals themselves are those bigger, meaningful, or scoped for those bigger, more meaningful impact or the work in which the employee or your team is doing. So a few examples. These are from the video that got sent out in the pre-work, so you may have seen it. They may look familiar, so a little bit of a review for those that have, preview for those that haven't seen it yet, but a quick plug for the video. It's a really good place. I think that one's about 12 or 13 minutes long. It's short, try to keep it short and simple. We know everybody's busy, so that's a good resource to refer back to for a high-level overview and reminders of all of this content. So the video is available on demand whenever you have time to watch it or need a refresher. So this idea with efficiency. So when it comes to thinking about goals and brainstorming about the work or the areas of goals that you might be interested in having your employees do, your employees might be interested in doing, some might readily come to mind, others it might, be more of an exploration and a brainstorming process. So one approach to take is around this angle of efficiencies, meaning it's exploring the work that your employee needs to do as far as what are some areas in their role that they can be more efficient, ways that they can be better at things, faster at things, save resources, so it's time, money, that can help them contribute to bigger goals or improve their performance. So in this particular example, the title there is to improve process to reduce waste. You can read the goal there about implementing this new process to reduce waste for operational efficiencies by moving from that accommodating requests on ad hoc basis to designing something that is more, that implements it in a more consistent manner. So in this case, you can see the goal title, regardless of what the goal is, or if it's from this efficiency standpoint, it should still reflect the strategies that we spoke about earlier. So it's still having that what and the how. So the what is reducing, the how by creating something that is more, that is less ad hoc, I should say. And then the overall big meaningful alignment would be that operational efficiencies. So regardless of what the goal is, it should still reflect those strategies or the topic or your particular teamwork. The next example, so again, exploring work, but in this case is exploring it and looking at through this idea of expansion or broadening or considering areas beyond the regular work that the employee does. This might be other duties as assigned. So in this case, it's kind of this idea of expansion. So looking for aspects of the job that can be more complex, that can add some variety to a job. So kind of maybe thinking out of what they typically normally do. So in this case, it's coordinating resources for a board meeting and successfully leading the coordination for a board meeting. And maybe this is something that happens every other year, and proactively sourcing and aligning resources is defined by the chair. So in this case, again, still, even though it's from this approach of expansion, it still reflects the strategies that you can see how they're doing it, proactively sourcing and aligning resources. The what, it's the coordination. So within budget, food, and the assumption here would be that it would be aligned and meaningful work to the team. So that's where it would fit with those particular strategies as well. And this one too, the flexibility might come in that at the beginning of the year, maybe this was set, there was a budget, there was the opportunity to have people meet in person, and then that went away. And so maybe this is something that is just paused until next year or until the next time that it is that an in-person board meeting can have. Or maybe the flexibility is the location, in-person location drops out, but the flexibility now becomes setting up the technology to hold a virtual meeting. So that's where the flexibility piece may come in. So in the next example here, CSE examples. I'll turn it over to Joy to walk you through these.
It would be helpful to be off of mute. So at this particular point, we're going to break out into breakout rooms, and we're going to go through a couple of examples. And the first one is Travis is an administrative associate supporting a center. And the first goal is more around efficiency. Implement a process to streamline data organization within our shared files, saving time, eliminating inconsistencies, and potentially identifying gaps. The second goal is around expansion, write administrative manual for the center, outlining how to complete the process to streamline training and promote consistency by gathering input and feedback from the center director and other key stakeholders. So what we'd like to do, oh, next slide, because I think we have a couple, we have one more, if I'm not mistaken. Susan is an executive account specialist. Her daily work involves processing P-card transactions. So to create a process to reduce the turnaround time of the P-card transaction in less than 30 days by proactively monitoring transactions and collaborating with others for feedback. The task example for this goal is Susan decides to start reaching out to P-card holders around day 15 to gather information and updates to ensure it's on track or to accelerate the processing. So could you go back to the next slide, Christina, if you wouldn't mind? Could you go back to the former slide, Christina?
Sorry, I was asking for this one or?
Yes, that's
okay.
Perfect. So the reason that we chose these types of examples is because not everybody has lofty goals that they're trying to accomplish. Sometimes the roles that are out there or that you are supervising are pretty straightforward. And so what your individuals, your employees are like, I do what I do when I do it. And so how do I make a goal? How do I make it impactful? How do I make it meaningful? And so with an administrative associate supporting a center, we all know that when our centers aren't going to run without our administrative support there to help. And so being able to help them say, implement a process to streamline the data, that's the what. And the, saving time, eliminating inconsistencies, and potentially identifying the gaps. That's going to be the impact. You're eliminating inconsistencies, which is going to create more efficiencies. And the one thing that's missing here is by when. When do we want to make that happen? And with regards to the second example, writing an administrative manual for the center. I was just going through the second one really quick. Writing administrative manual for the center, sorry about that, to streamline training and promoting consistency. So you're definitely expanding this individual's role because now they're actually going to have a broader impact on the entire center because of the fact that this manual is going to reach the entire center for the fact that they're going to be, excuse me, my words are getting mixed up here, but they're going to be able to touch accounting. They're going to be able to touch payroll. They're going to be able to touch perhaps the HR pieces within the center and be able to actually have an impact on more than just themselves. And then again, by when is something that you want to be able to say, because that then will give someone concrete deadlines to work towards. Next slide. Next slide. And then this is something that comes up quite a bit, where folks will say, I process P-card transactions. That's what I do. And so this is how you can actually get somebody more engaged in that, by creating a process to reduce that turnaround time. Trying to do that in less than 30 days. Now I realize they're coming in fast and furiously. There's a lot more to it than just, okay, we're going to make our 30-day deadline, but it's a goal. And so it could be a stretch goal. And maybe it's asking someone to reach out after 15 days, after 20 days, whatever the case may be. But again, it's something that this individual can engage in, can actually be a part of setting this goal, creating a process around it, so that not only is this going to help the individual stay engaged, but it also gets the individual out and about. Well, in this particular environment, not necessarily out and about, but actually reaching out to stakeholders and connecting with others. And so again, it can be difficult with regards to some of our administrative support positions, but we wanted to show that all of our positions can actually have goals wrapped around them. And looking at it with this approach, you can actually, it's simple. You know, the simple approach is what we'd like to take. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to break you out into groups of about 4 or 5 and take about 10 minutes to create your own simple goals. And what I would ask is that you would come back and be ready to share out some of the goals that you've come up with. So Lindsay, if you could begin the breakout room process.
Everyone who is rejoining us. It's like I'm watching the numbers climb as we all come back.
Yeah. Before we get into insights, let's hear a couple of the goals, or if there were any issues or challenges in creating the goals.
I'll share from our group.
Oh, say that, Rhonda. Say that again, Rhonda.
I said I'll share from our group, and any of my fellow group members can jump in. But what we did was kind of piggyback off the D&I Alliance annual meeting that was earlier this week. And it was talked about there what the impact would be if everyone throughout the college would spend 5 hours of time during the next year doing diversity work or training or engaging in this work. And so that's why we decided that that would be a good goal. It's a nice measurable goal. 5 hours does not seem overwhelming no matter what your job is. And that it's really a jumping off point for targeted professional development, that we should all be doing professional development in a lot of ways, but working at a Twin Cities urban campus, that 5 hours of diversity work or training, and there's plenty of resources out there, whether that be online, eventually maybe in person someday, but that we thought that that was a pretty easy thing to require all employees to do that we supervise.
Thank you. I agree. I agree. Anybody else?
And feel free to throw it in chat too if you'd rather type something out. That would be a great way to share as well. But either way.
Hi, Joy and Christina. This is Lindsay. Looking at the challenges you experience, one thing that I've been grappling with in my head is the person that I supervise. We set goals for them at the beginning of the last review cycle, this person has a lot of like customer service type job duties that have drastically changed with the work from home piece. So now that we're 3/4 of the way through the review cycle, how do we revamp those goals? Like, can we look in hindsight at some of the tasks that they've taken on, some of the things that they've taken on and how they've had to adjust, or are we looking forward to the next 3 months?
Good question. Christina, do you want me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep, and I can
Okay.
chime in, but yeah, go ahead.
So I think it's a little bit of both, Lindsay. I would look back at what this individual has accomplished because of the fact that things have definitely changed. And so you may not think that you have accomplished anything, but I am fairly sure almost everyone, if not everyone, has accomplished something. And so I would look back, and then I would, it could be based on what has happened in the last, 8 months, or it could be something new where you look at, okay, now we're home. And so what can happen in the next 3 months? What could I have you work on? What would you want to work on? Maybe it's a good time to do some of the diversity classes, or not the classes, because trust me, they are full, but they meaning OED, have actually launched some self-paced classes that you can do on your own. Maybe this is the time to put in that one professional development goal around diversity. So it's a little bit of both. I would look back at what has been accomplished and put that in and talk about it in a way that, hey, this was something that worked out well. Is there something we can bring into the new year? But then I would also look at, maybe some of those things that maybe there's a training, maybe there is, maybe there's well, I guess that would fall under training, something that your direct report has always wanted to learn. Maybe this would be the good time to do that. So I think you could mix both. That answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
You
And
got
I
it?
would chime in just one additional piece, because I think that's great to think about it in both ways. But at whatever point it is to capture what has been done up until now, and maybe just kind of build in a best practice of kind of capturing as you go between now and the end of the performance review cycle. So it'll be a lot harder to remember at the end when you're asked to write the review, to think back through the whole year versus, maybe if you have some more recent notes to kind of help remind you of those pieces that are really relevant and fresh in your mind now, but may not be in 4 to 6 months when you need to complete the review. But it's a really good way to kind of approach it. I see somebody with a hand raised. It looks like Bethany.
Bethany?
Okay.
Yeah, that's me.
Thank you.
So one bit of pushback that I've been getting in my goal setting conversations with people, and it's not across the board, but it's just 1 or 2 people, so it's not widespread, is the sentiment that, we're already under a lot of stress. You've already reduced our pay, and you've already limited hiring, so we can't grow the team. This is asking too much. Like, why are you, throwing this on my plate when I already have so much to do and I'm under such a strain? So I'm curious how people are handling that kind of pushback.
Absolutely. Before I jump in, does anybody have a response? Anybody tackled that one yet? Take that as a no. Yeah, you're probably all asking that. Yeah. Right.
And I can chime in too, Joy, if you want to. I can chime in, but I want to.
Well, why don't you take that one first, and then I'll chime in.
Okay, I can start. So the thing that I think everybody is feeling that. So I think step one is just acknowledging that and understanding that, and everybody's feeling it, but even just labeling it and acknowledging it sometimes is just kind of, people can take a, kind of a sigh of relief. So I think number one, that's the first step, but also it doesn't have to be perfect. But get started somewhere, because even within the crazy priorities that are probably be thrown at us constantly, change constantly, it's still helpful to understand what work they should be contributing to. And so maybe it's just capturing what they're doing, so it's not adding something new, but they are working, they are coming to work, they are contributing, they are showing up as their best selves, they are trying. So whatever that is that they're doing, maybe just scope out the goal to reflect the work that they're doing. So again, not to add additional work, not to add additional stress, but it's still important. And, kind of think further down the performance management cycle, it's rewarding to get feedback and think about what you did accomplish given the uniqueness of this year. So I would maybe try to find the best way that you can to capture in writing the work that they're doing and position it like that. And that this goal shouldn't be something in addition, especially this year. But hopefully that helps. And Joy, please chime in.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I think from a recognition standpoint, that it's very important, to piggyback on Christina with the fact that people are still coming to work, people are still giving their all with all of the things that they have going on in their personal lives, with homeschooling and just managing maybe other caregiving needs, to be able to come to the table and go, wow, I actually, here's all the other things I've done in addition to these other responsibilities. Just being able to talk about that and maybe do some reflection on that can really, make one feel like, you know what, I have done a lot and I have something to really be proud of here in addition to the other things in my life. And so, and it also sets the stage for, the next year, what can we think about for next year? And so not to be, to make it a burden, in as much as, the university has decided we are going to still keep going with performance reviews. And it's also a good thing to get the opportunity to connect with your direct report as well. I know with remote work, it can be tough sometimes. Some people are connecting more, but there are some that are connecting less. And this is at least one time where you can go through everything, talk about, in spite of it all, here's what we did. Here's what you did, and that type of thing. Helpful?
Very much so. Thank you.
Good. Anything else?
Yeah, other insights or anything else that your small group discussed that would be helpful to get to share, get clarity, additional discussion around?
Any really great goal out there?
Oh yeah.
Goals that someone came up with? I know when I first started out, writing goals was just not one of my strong suits. Right.
Yeah, it's not easy, and sometimes too it bouncing it off of somebody or getting additional input is a great place to help.
Okay.
Yes, did somebody pop in with a comment or? No? Okay. I think for the sake of time, we'll move forward with the slides. But again, if you have more information to add, share, questions to ask, please feel free to unmute and share or throw it in the chat too. So a couple of next steps for the goal setting thing is updating with employees. So basically taking this information and sharing it with employees or connecting with them. And again, connections are always important, but maybe a little bit more so important given the space and the context in which we are operating in, that we don't just naturally see people in the office anymore. So again, connecting them with the projects and priorities, which may have shifted since last time you had a conversation with them about this from a broader perspective, reviewing their goals, asking for their input so that they find them meaningful and challenging too, so that they're more engaged in that, following those strategies for the simple goals, describing the what and the how, making sure they're aligned, few in number, focus, so that employees don't feel overwhelmed or any additional stress. Adding and updating in the PAT, so the PAT is available to CSE. CSE is using it, so there is a space in there if you log in or if you direct your employees to log in to enter the goals, the title, describe it, and then a due date too, if you want to include that as well. Once the employee adds it, there is a shared, both the employee and the supervisor can see it. So that's a really good place to kind of keep current updates for potential changes. And then continue to meet and provide feedback around the goals or discuss the work in general, but definitely connect with employees moving forward. I should also say too, one more aspect is that there is a quick guide to goal setting, would have come out in the email that Joy sent out at pre-work a couple of days ago, or it is on some additional resources and websites that I'll share here in a moment as well. So I'll turn it over to Joy for some next steps.
All righty. If you have any questions at all, you can certainly reach out to me or your department or center administrator. We're here to support you. And there's going to be another workshop on December 10th at 10 a.m. on conducting ongoing check-ins. And this is going to be a focus on providing coaching and feedback to support your employees around goal progress. And the one thing I want to say about this is right now your employees, and this is also something I'm sure you know, but bears repeating again, your employees really need that coaching and feedback now. They need to know what it is that they are doing right. They need to hear that. They need to know that you support them because it is such an uncertain time and we're all living in the world of ambiguity, and sometimes it feels like we're free falling. So I think that was going to be a good one as well. I also want to just kind of jump back to the PAT. I've received probably most of the administrators our forms for access. If you haven't gotten that to me, please do, because as administrators, you have to go in and initiate your reviews for your civil service and bargaining unit employees. P&A employees are optional. Departments can determine if your P&A employees will be using the PAT. Once you initiate your reviews, you will then be able to, employees will be able to go in and actually look at their form and be able to put in some goals, and you'll be able to work the system all the way through. We won't have to do anything about entering reviews until it's that time, but at least from a goal standpoint, you can add some goals in there. And then I think finally, supervisor access. Supervisors automatically have access if they have employees in there and you're a designated supervisor in PeopleSoft. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or your administrator.
And then
how do we, I was going to say, how do we access the PAT tool? So if you go in the training, thank you, Lindsay.
In the chat, yep, resource in the chat, thank you. And then a couple of additional resources to share too. This one is the z.umn.edu performance management site. It is where all of this performance management information is stored, owned by the Office of Human Resources. That PAT link that Lindsay just shared, it's also a part of, on the left-hand side of this, it's a link there too. So it talks about the process as a whole and then also those system connections as well. So it's a really good place to get started. And then the last one is supervising.umn.edu, supervisory development course. It is information broader than performance management, but because performance management is a supervisory responsibility, the performance management stuff is also linked on that site as well. So you can go there. So the quick guides are on both places, and just some connections that you may see as you explore those two resources. But I will flip back to that one just because that's probably the best place to get started. With that, we didn't have any additional content to share, but were there any additional questions or comments about goals, getting started with goals, challenges, or anything else that you may need at this point to support kind of moving forward with setting goals and working with your employees to have those conversations. Yeah, so I believe the slide question was asked. I believe the recording and the slide deck will be sent out, Joy, is that correct?
Yep,
Okay.
they should be ready in a couple of weeks. Once we get all of the captioning, or I should say, once Rhonda and team, thank you, Rhonda and team, get the captioning put together, and we will send that out. Also, final mention, this was actually asked at our last session. Will this session be shared with employee or non-supervisors? At this point, there isn't the capacity to do that. So what we are asking is that supervisors share this information with their employees. If perhaps capacity does open up, probably in maybe the early part of January to mid-January, then we will attempt to do that. But for now, we are asking that supervisors share this with employees. I think that's it. Thank you all for coming.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.